So the part one video looking at the USA culture and sport, really we identify some of the characteristics associated with the US culture and society. We know it's capitalistic, and we know it was inherited by Puritans initially, who had this very tough, determined approach to hard work, so this frontier spirit. And we looked at, I'm talking about how that then transfers and reflects into the sport played in the US. We also talked about the Lombardian ethic, the three different ethics that might be seen, and the Lombardian ethic being about winning at all cost. So we've got another couple of key concepts to identify before we look more specifically at American football. So here's just a reminder of the specification, and we're just going to look at the American dream and then go on to look at American football and how that has evolved in their culture. So some sports that may have originated in the States. This image here of native Indians, actually in a very early form of a sport that we might recognise today as lacrosse. And this is played throughout the States, much less so in other countries. I think typically in the UK we might see it in private schools, but it's a big game in the States. Baseball, obviously, basketball, and something that we need to look at more closely is American football. Now, you can make the tie already with the win ethic, the Lombardian ethic, because Vince Lombardi was an American football coach. But now let's look at the American dream and how this belief in society at large might also translate into sport. So the American dream, what is this actually about? Well, it's the idea that essentially you can move from poverty to success and riches if you try hard and you've got the ability. Now, this is true of America in general because people typically view it as the land of opportunity. That's why immigration is so vast in the States, because people seek a better life there. But the American dream not only just refers to society at large, but also specifically through sport. Sport can be a vehicle that people can use. If you're great at sport, you can make it. And if you make it big in the States, you'll be wealthy. There's no doubt about it. So it's a way of achieving upward social mobility, going from poverty to success and wealth. It does require and is underpinned by the fact that there's greater equality and freedom in the States. So you're not restricted so much by class. Anybody can succeed if they work hard. They've got upper social mobility, and they're not restricted by a very rigid class system, which in the UK historically certainly we have. So everybody goes there and has equal chances of making it. It's also important that this works because it's such a capitalistic society, in that it's about succeeding and making profit whatever the cost. It's a free market, so if you've got it, you've got it. Again, what will help you achieve this is this work ethic that pervades the characteristics of a lot of American society. So the Puritans started with that courageous, tough, determined approach. And now that can be seen in people, young people, determined to make it big in sport and achieve success for themselves. This Lombardian ethic, winning is the only way, that's what matters. That will feed into the American dream. And these phrases that you again might put in an answer, rags to riches or zero to hero, again, they epitomise the American dream. And based on this and this capitalistic approach into society, wealth is what matters. Success is wealth is happiness. They're one and the same thing. Doesn't matter how you get there. So the American dream, this ability of using sport as a vehicle to move upward from poverty to success and wealth. Again, have a pause, have a look at this 5-mark question, which looks at the economic system and how that can influence sport. And obviously we look at a couple of key factors there we're going to address in a little bit more detail when we look at the American dream. So, American football, how it originated and how it developed. Well, it actually originated in the Ivy League colleges. These are the better colleges in the US. It questionably came from rugby, but this guy, Walter Camp, was very important in terms of developing the rule structure And it was really important for the American people to do this because it was almost like they were building their own sport, their own new identity, especially when they got independence from us and other countries. So this new sport, American football, epitomised their break from domination, I guess. But it could have evolved from rugby, and Walter Camp was key in developing its rules. And actually, it was originally called gridiron, based on how the pitch was structured, and we'll have a little look at that in a moment. Again, I've said already, it evolved in the Ivy League colleges. Early on, however, there were very few rules, if any, and actually it was banned for a period of time because people were killed whilst playing it. So it was pretty aggressive, violent sport from the outset. And it was only when rules were developed, not only did the game become better in terms of how it played, but it became safer. Professionalism really was important in this sport very early on, given this win ethic and capitalistic nature of the people in the country. It was about making money and being paid for playing. But as I said already, rules evolved, it became more formalised and safe, but it has always represented a very macho image, again relating to that frontier spirit, and has always been very violent and very competitive. So these are the Ivy League colleges. You may recognise some of them: Yale, Harvard, Dartmouth, Princeton. And the early games really were played between those universities, and the games evolved via play between these universities, so they were very central in how it developed. So gridiron, you can see the grids that make up the structure of the pitch. Every 10 yards there's a line, and we've got our touchdown areas at each end, and essentially the team is trying to get the ball in the hands of somebody into your opponent's touchdown zone or touchdown area. It can be run in or caught whilst in there. So it's a lot to do with scrimmaging, so there's face-to-face contact and face-to-face aggression within the teams. If you haven't seen it played, I suggest you go onto YouTube and have a look. They all wear, extreme amounts of protective gear, helmets, massive shoulder pads, chest pads, which actually is dehumanizing in a way. It makes you less a person that you're facing, and maybe you're more likely to be violent because you're not seeing a person in front of you. But the game's very much about gaining yardage, gaining distance to get you nearer to that touchdown area. Gaining territory, a bit like Frontier Spirit. They gained territory moving from east to west in the country originally. It's actually involved with a lot of very precise, complex plays, and there are offensive teams and defensive teams, and players are subbed on and off depending on the need for the strategy and tactic within the game. It's a hugely tactical and specialised game, very complex in how they organise what they're going to do, with lots and lots of set plays. The language itself, as you can see, blitz, power play, trap, rush, sack, snap, very aggressive, very violent, almost like a battle. And so violence is prevalent in this game. It is about violence. It is about smashing each other and stopping each other. Contact is very much within the rules of the game, and that will certainly promote some violent and aggressive play. And again, we can add all of these things together and see how frontierism, getting up, being tough, being determined, getting knocked down and getting up again and fighting on. Also, it's such a show. The crowd expects violence, expects it to be fast, huge pace to the game. So the rules of the game very much allow the sport to be violent and aggressive and fast. Because we can see that the country is so vast, the teams are incredibly spread out. So they have they have different conferences. So you don't get teams from opposing sides of the country 3,000 miles away having to play each other. And there's a little table to show the east and north and south and west conferences. So let's just look at violence and commercialism specifically within this sport. So inherently violent, we've alluded to that already when we looked at the rules. It's traditionally violent. It started off being violent. It's very much within the nature of the sport itself. This frontierism within the culture and within sport will promote violence. The rules allow it high impact and lots of contact. It's a crowd expectation. Because there are no draws, the players might be more violent and more determined in order to win and not be the losers. We've got this Lombardian win ethic pervading sport. So win at all cost, even if it means smashing somebody up on the opposition. We've said the protective gear and the language used within it make it very much battle. We've got set plays which are like attacks in order to achieve the goal, the only goal, which is winning. The rewards are, and the stakes are high. So this again will make people do what they need to do in order to win, even if it involves maybe taking drugs or cheating. I imagine that things like steroids are very prevalent in American football. So win at all cost. Commercialism then, the US is a very commercialized, very capitalistic, all about money, making money kind of society. And we can see this very easily in a lot of sports, but especially in American football. For example, the teams are owned by as franchises and are run as businesses. So Budweiser actually owns St. Louis Cardinals, McDonald's owns San Diego Padres, Wrigley's owns the Chicago Cubs, and in fact, the Los Angeles Raiders actually moved to Oakland because they were bought and it was better commercially to be there. So how bizarre is that? That's a bit like Manchester United being run out of Glasgow. It's amazing, all to do with money. Sponsorship is immense in the States, but obviously particularly in the NFL, and you can look here at some of the financial figures that people had for salaries, but also from sponsorship. You can add a lot more money on that. And these people are so in the media, they're so superstars. Sporting heroes are superstars in the country. They're on the TV all the time, which makes them brilliant business for sponsors. And I'm sure it goes into millions and millions of dollars for a player who makes it and is sponsored by multiple people or multiple companies. The Super Bowl in itself, this exemplifies commercialism and how sport in the US is a show and an entertainment thing, and how much money goes into it from the media perspective, from the sponsorship perspective. So hundreds of millions of viewers in the US, let alone in other countries. And you can see from this image what a show and spectacle it is. It's not just about the sport, it's about the performance and the entertaining the crowd and having an amazing time and families going there. A 30-second advert in the Super Bowl costs $4 million. A company paid $4 million for a 30-second advert. That's crazy. And actually the rules were modified in order to allow for multiple adverts. The halftime is an hour long to get as much advertising in as possible and making money from that. And actually just this image shows the prize of the Super Bowl, which is the Lombardi Trophy. So this was from Vince Lombardi. The pre-game entertainment, we had pop stars performing, half-time entertainment, pop stars performing, just illustrating how it's about entertainment, how it's a show, how it's about making money. Now, in order to make it big, the American dream is prevalent true. You can make it if you've got the ability and you're willing to try hard, and anybody can do that. But actually the sporting structure is set up, it's very elitist. It's all about competition from a very young age, little leaguers going out and playing the game, and the route upward is very, very possible. It's structured to support players making it into the pro leagues. There's the draft system, which takes the better players and gives the teams choices over who they have. So the better up-and-coming uni players go to the weaker league teams, and that really promotes elite play and allows up-and-coming performers, along with things like scholarships, to really make it big. So American sport, really technically advanced. Their stars are the wealthiest in the world. We've got this American dream getting rags to riches. With the US is champions in many of the sports. We've got this win ethic and unfortunately deviant behaviour. And this image just shows one of the superstars' homes. So commercialism, this link between capitalism making money, the teams being run as businesses, the vast sponsorship and merchandising opportunities that are available, the Super Bowl being such an immense entertainment show, and the financial rewards all promote media, all support this relationship between the media, the sponsorship and sport, which is called the Golden Triangle. They all need each other, they all feed off each other. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is questionable. And again, have a look at this mark scheme. So to summarise the nature of US sport, again, pause the video and have a look.